allegations are completely unfounded. But less than a year after the tour of Switzerland, Lance Armstrong wrote a personal check to the UCI for $25,000, and his company gave a further $100,000 in 2005. In his sworn evidence, Armstrong's recollection of his donations was vague.
You have made a contribution or donation to the UCI, have you not?
I have, yeah.
Do you know when that was made?
Some years ago, I don't recall exactly.
2000, for example?
I don't know.
Was it, was there anything that occasioned that you recall? Like, I'm doing it because of X or Y or Z?
I'm doing it to fund the fight against doping.
For an athlete to be paying money to the people who police him it's unconscionable.
To have somebody who's at the center of the controversy make this kind of a donation to the organization that has the power to sanction him, it sets up an impossible conflict of interest.
Lance Armstrong is not alone among drug cheats. Since 1998, more than a third of the top 10 finishers in the Tour de France have been linked to doping. But the will of the UCI to shut down the doping networks is being questioned, not least by the former head of the World Anti-Doping Agency, Dick Pound. Mr. Pound cites a conversation he had with the former UCI president, Hein Verbruggen.
I said, Hein, you guys have a huge problem in your sport. He said, what do you mean? I said, the doping. Well, he said, that's really the fault of the spectators. And I said, I beg your pardon, it's the spectators' fault? Well, he said, yes. If they were happy with the Tour de France at 25K, it would be fine. But he said if they wanted it 41, 42, he said the riders have to prepare. And I just shook my head and said, well, you heard it here first, you got a big problem.
Jörg Jakscher is a former cyclist who also questions the UCI's commitment to stamp out systematic doping in the peloton's top teams. From his earliest days as a professional, he was told how the system works.
The team manager, one day he took me by his side like a father, kind of a father thing, and said, listen, I have to explain you why it is that you're permanently dropped, and this is the solution. So if you want to do it, we can do it. Everyone in our team does it. The team pays for it. And yeah, so I was confronted with the situation that there is organized doping in cycling.
Jörg Jakscher and Tyler Hamilton came unstuck when in 2006 Spanish police conducted a raid on a doctor in Madrid and found blood bags, drugs and paperwork implicating them and other cyclists.
When did you first...
Later, Jörg Jakscher gave sworn evidence to the German authorities.
In the end, why did you decide to come clean?
I didn't like the hypocrisy in the sport. So the Operación Puerto, which was this Spanish drug operation, in which I was implicated also, and in which a lot of riders were implicated, they kind of showed me the real face of people running the cycling system. And the same people that first brought me to Fuentes or asked me to do doping or use other performance-enhancing drugs, they were the same people that suddenly started a movement for the credible cycling and were pointing the finger at us riders. I don't have a chance to come back as an athlete, but...
Jörg Jakscher had raced with several different teams, but when he met the UCI to tell them everything he knew, they failed to act on his detailed revelations.
As far as I know, no one of my team managers, of my team doctors, got questioned by the UCI. There was never written accusation, nothing. It's like having a deceased body, a dead body in your basement. It stinks a little bit after a while, and it's going to come up more and more and more. And one day the police is going to find it, and the information is there. The UCI did very little or nothing about it. So it's It's their problem if the basement stinks.
How has Tyler changed through all of this?
There's been a huge transformation. There's definitely a guard lifted, a weight lifted.
What do you think brought that about?
Telling the truth. Telling the truth.
Do you think that what he's done has been good for the sport?
Of course. I think you need to go back a little bit before you can go forward. So I'm very proud of him.
Now more than ever, it's not about the bike, it's about the truth.
I was kicking and screaming when I had to tell the truth, but little did I know it was the best thing I ever could have done.
What Lance never had was the truth, which is more powerful than the corrupt athlete.
How could it have taken place?
Whether Lance Armstrong will ever confess to doping remains to be seen. In 2005, his denials were passionate.
How many times do I have to say it?
I'm just trying to make sure your testimony is clear.
Well, if it can't be any clearer than I've never taken drugs, then incidents like that could never have happened.
Okay.
How clear is that?
It was really hard for us to tell if Lance actually believed what he was telling and had convinced himself that he hadn't done these things, or that he was just a very persuasive liar.
Okay, I think it's clear.
Attorney Jeff Tillotson and the insurer eventually agreed to pay Lance Armstrong his bonus.
We had one problem. We had a bad contract. Our contract said we will pay him the bonus if he is declared the official winner of a Tour de France race, and he most certainly was. So that's why we ultimately stopped the case, made the payment, and waited until the regulatory agencies did their investigation.
In Lance Armstrong's hometown of Austin, Texas, he still has many loyal supporters. At Mellow Johnny's, his bike shop, customers are sanguine about the idea of their hero being a cheat.
Lance passed 500 and some tests, right? Hasn't shown a positive yet, but, you know, just as a big cycling fan myself and watching a lot of the races, you know, some sort of cheating probably goes on and is probably pretty widespread, but that just kind of comes with the territory.
The 7 yellow jerseys on the wall at Mellow Johnny's are unlikely to be taken down anytime soon. Lance Armstrong says he's moving on and will not be distracted from his work with Livestrong and the fight to beat cancer. The stakes could hardly be higher.
I know the power of this man when he walks into the room, and I know the hope he gives cancer survivors. I mean, I don't know if he is proved to have taken drugs, how he can face any of these people, because, I mean, he can call up Barack Obama. He has his cell phone number on his cell phone. And how can you call up these people knowing that you've taken drugs all your life to cheat to 7 tours? It's a problem I wouldn't want.
If you have a doping offense or you test positive, it goes without saying that you're fired from all of your contracts, not just the team, but there's numerous contracts that I have that would all go away.
Sponsorship agreements, for example.
All of them. And the faith of all the cancer survivors around the world. So everything I do off of the bike would go away too. And don't think for a second, I don't understand that. It's not about money for me. Everything. It's also about the faith that people have put in me over the years. So all of that would be erased. So I don't need it to say in a contract, you're fired if you test positive. That's not as important as losing the support of hundreds of millions of people.
And Lance Armstrong is still protesting all the way out the back door. Now we wait to see if the International Cycling Union is actually capable of getting a very dirty house in order. The UCI, USADA and Lance Armstrong all declined to be interviewed for the story. There's a special online presentation on our website featuring the key players in tonight's program. Next week on Four Corners, the story behind the federal government's change of heart in refusing access to the Dutch super trawler to fish in Australian waters. Until then, good night.